All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As we are going all with our event, there will be people streaming in because being students, well, some of them may be in class and just heading over here shortly. But before we start, we the Swinburne Leadership Hub acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional custodian of the land on which Swinburne Australian campuses are located. We pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Sovereignty was never ceded. So with that, let's start with introducing our panel today. We have three amazing CEO, and we are really happy and thank you for taking your time to be here with us today. And Aravind, let's start with Liz.
So Elizabeth Compton is the non-executive director and CEO of Language Loop, non-executive director of Southern Cross Care. And we have Grace Petherick. Grace Petherick is the founder and CEO of Age Up Health. And we have Sam Pratt, who is the CEO of Render Networks. And thank you so much for taking time to come here today. We'd also like to, if you guys could explain a bit about your company.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. It's great to be here. So Language Loop is a interpreting and translations business. So we work with hundreds and hundreds of clients delivering language services, interpreting translations across 180 languages with 3,000 interpreters. And I guess we deliver these services across any channel, anywhere, anytime.
How about Grace?
Hi, I'm the founder and CEO of Age Up. Age Up Health is a in-home aged care provider. So we help older people over the age of 65 to stay living in their homes for the rest of their lives with services, supports and technologies.
Fantastic. Thanks, Grace. So Sam Pratt's my name. I'm the CEO at Render Networks. So we are a geospatial construction management platform. And so effectively our software and our technology streamlines the deployment of fibre networks and broadband networks and wireless networks here in Australia. Most of the company is based over in the US. So we're about 40 or 50 people now. The majority of our people are here, but the majority of our customers are in the US. So that's a little bit about Render.
While Chris still have the mic, would
Sure.
you tell us more about a role of being a CEO? What does the role CEO entails?
Certainly. So I think the acronym is a little bit distracting from the reality. So there's perception, a sales pitch versus reality. Really, the reality of being a CEO, of being a leader in my company, which is still a relatively small company, right? 50 people, is that we're across all things, we're across all functions. We're at risk of being the bottleneck in the decision process, and so it's important for us to be really responsive and very available to our people. And strategic direction certainly rests with generally the executive team and also board of directors, but really it's about execution and it's about getting things done and it's about being as efficient as we can, being as available as we can to our people, and ensuring that the vision and the purpose of the company are understood, are very clearly communicated, and that we stay focused on our customers because they're the reason that we exist. Right?
All right. And Grace and Liz, do you have anything to add to that?
Look, I think you put it really well. I think particularly in a small startup, we're about 65 people now. My day-to-day job, as much as I would love it to be being a CEO and being the keeper of the vision and keeping my team on track, that's certainly a part of it. But a lot of it is the doing, and it's jumping in and filling gaps where they need to be filled. It's doing events like this and working within the industry and the sector to bring attention to what we see as pressing issues, but it can also be answering the phones or responding to client complaints on any given day. So my day is super varied, super busy. I think that's probably something that resonates with all of us. And whilst we try and spend I try and spend as much time as I can zooming out and supporting my executive team to achieve our goals and to achieve our quarterly objectives, that is not always on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't always go to plan. I'm not sure what your days are like.
Yeah. Look, I think that's a good summary. You're a jack of all trades and you have to be able to work at the strategic level. So working with a board of directors is the usual case, and working with your executive team to set the strategy. But then also, you can be on the front line in a client meeting, dealing with problems. And I think the challenge is not getting dragged down into too much of that day-to-day operational piece and trying to really keep the team driven, trying to make sure that you are delivering and what else is out there and what clients do you need to talk to, and keeping the team motivated, engaged to keep, all the wheels. I always say sometimes, you just feel like you're spinning a million different plates. But yeah, I think you've sort of summed it up in jack of all trades, but trying to stay at that strategic level.
Yeah, with the title Chief Executive Officer, I guess you kind of sum it up quite correctly, and also having a boundary is really important so that you're not down on the ground doing the work while not being able to see the bigger vision of the company as well. And I have a very interesting question considering that, Liz, you're an art student. So this is where we'd like to know what inspired you to become a CEO. I mean, fundamentally or traditionally, people think CEO are like from business background. And as a Swinburne art student, what inspired you to take up the role of a CEO?
Yeah, well, probably it wasn't until later in my career, and I think now you do see more CEOs from disciplines outside of pure business, because I think now when you look at the complexity of the world, your customer base, what it is that you're trying to do, it's much more common to see CEOs appointed from outside a direct operational line or sales line. So what inspired me, I don't know, I never knew I wanted to be a CEO, or could be in the early days. It was only probably later in my career, and once I got exposure to I was a part of an executive team and I saw what we did, and then I started attending board meetings, and I thought, I think I can do this, and I think I've got better ideas. And when you're sitting in a meeting or wherever it is and you're thinking something but you don't say it, and then someone else says it. So that was happening a lot, and so I thought, and then I saw peers doing really well in their careers, and so then I thought, what, it might be an option. I was always very ambitious, but it was only probably 10, 12 years ago that I started thinking it's something that I would like to aim for and like to do.
Right. We hear you. I mean, from how I can summarize this is that it didn't come as something that you set out to do, but it just you just stumble along your way and found that this might be something of interest to me, and fantastic. How about you, Grace?
Yeah, very similar. I definitely didn't set out to be a CEO. I took a very non-traditional pathway. I didn't finish high school. I hadn't graduated from Swinburne yet when I started my company, so I was very much learning as I went, and I didn't do my MBA until later in my tenure as CEO. So my journey started with my grandparents, who became quite unwell. We as a family wanted to keep them at home. I don't know about you guys, but my grandma always wagging a finger at us when we were kids saying, don't you ever put me in a nursing home. So we were trying to keep them at home and make sure that they were healthy and safe, and we had a pretty bad experience with the home care organisation that we engaged. And I thought, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I thought, stuff this, I'm going to try this and do my own kind of thing and see what happens. And then from there, it just kind of snowballed until I was like, oh shit, like I have to actually learn how to do this thing now and to run a company. So that was very much, I'm still learning every day. I'm certainly not, I'm not someone who comes from a traditional executive background or worked my way up or anything like that.
Thanks, Grace. What an inspiring story. That's really, that's fantastic. So we all have our own unique set of background and experiences. So I love that you shared your background from an education standpoint. So I was also a Swinburne alum. I'm also a Swinburne alum, and I studied business information systems. But the only thing that I was really interested in doing when I was studying was running online businesses. And online businesses, back then were pretty small and took the form of eBay type operations, bringing stuff in. Yeah, absolutely. Bringing stuff in and trying to make a go of it. And so I always wanted to run a company, but I just didn't have the tools and the experience to be able to do it. And so I actually had a couple of failures. Went back into corporate to build up my experience, and I worked for some of the retail banks, and I worked in retail on the buying side of a major retailer here, David Jones, up in Sydney, and just built some experience from a corporate perspective. And then I think I just picked up on your background. You went back and did some further study, and that was really just about. And I assume all of you are in your early 20s because you're still at university or 30s or thereabouts. But it really wasn't until I was in my 30s that I went and gained the confidence and the experience to go and have another go at running a company. So that's that's a little bit about how what my path has been, and then since then it's really just been learning from those that you're in proximity of, and taking advantage of every opportunity.
Thank you. Those are some very inspiring answers. We would like to know, why are you passionate about what you do, especially starting off with Grace. You started Age of Health, so
Yeah.
disrupting the aged care industry. Why? What sparked it?
Yeah, so it was definitely that personal experience for me. I didn't have a healthcare background or any kind of nursing or even really services. Spent my early 20s running around Europe and running nightclubs. So for me, it was a huge change, and it was a real passion project. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. And aged care, as you would probably know, is a very highly regulated, very entrenched and somewhat antiquated sector. So I think for me, not just the challenge of the experience of our customers that really inspired me, but actually the challenge of turning something that was very traditional, and I'm sure you've all heard of the term disruption. For me, it was like, this is a space where they've just had a Royal Commission. COVID hadn't started yet, but it was just about to. There's so much room for improvement. I can actually make a difference here, and I can build something that is unique and that is differentiated. That to me was like awesome. I'd so much rather do that than go and become a management consultant, even if it means that I have to work a little bit harder.
Well, for me at Language Loop, it was all about language services and helping people settle. So newly arrived migrants, people who don't speak English, arriving in Australia and helping them settle. So that's a very powerful thing to be a part of, and very important. But also working with business. So we sort of have two sides to the business. One is that, I guess, government services, helping people arrive and settle. But the other is working with very big corporates around, look at your customer base. English isn't necessarily their first language, and why are you only communicating in English, where we know with technology it's very easy, relatively easy, to be able to deliver that customer journey in any language, even if people can speak English. So I really was motivated on the business side, but also on, I guess, on the other side of the equation in terms of the organisation and what we deliver, and looking at the technology and how we can use technology to really bring our services to a much wider group, and to, I guess, transform, talking of antiquated, how companies talk to their customer base.
Interesting. How about you, Sam?
Thanks, Liz. So I might just asking a question. It's a rhetorical question, but hopefully this makes sense. How many of us have broadband connections at home, internet connection at home, other than your hotspot and Wi-Fi? Right? Yeah. So the number in rural areas, even here in Australia, is about 50% of what it is in the city. Of course it is, right? That's an issue in the developed world. That's even a larger issue in the developing world. At Render, we're not the solve for that, but we're a part of the solve for it. In that our solution enables homes and businesses, predominantly in rural areas across the United States, states like Arkansas and Texas and Mississippi, to deploy broadband services, fibre to the home services, predominantly more efficiently than is otherwise possible. And on the back of COVID and all of the supply chain impacts and what have you, it's a very resource constrained environment, and so making good on the resources that you do have can have a really profound impact on a community. And so we're at a stage now where we've got an opportunity to connect millions of homes and businesses on our platform more efficiently than it would have been done without technology. So that's what gets us up in the morning at Render.
Yeah. From what I'm hearing from all three of you, this passion projects and has got social impact on it, and it is to provide a better world for everyone that's involved. Like, for example, linguistics, aged care, and also the somewhat basic human rights, internet. So from that, I would actually like to ask, what is the experience that you had that shaped you to become who you are today, and what kind of brought you here? I'm pretty sure you're passionate about what you were doing, but what experience you had as a student or during your younger days that brought you here to where you are right now?
I can probably kick us off and then pass this adorable microphone back in your direction if that works. I would say I'll just put it out there, and actually being back at Swinburne reminds me of a lot of failures, because I think I failed 3 subjects in my first year, which effectively locked me into business information systems, which I wasn't absolutely enamored with at the time. And then after finishing university, started a couple of businesses that didn't succeed, so they were failures. The first company after finishing my MBA that I went and joined went into administration. That was a failure. But I think taking advantage of the opportunities that you have, like in between those failures, learning from them, and just really understanding that it's a continual process of learning and self-discovery, and a continual process of building confidence, really, is sums it up for me.
Yeah, nicely put. I think in terms of social impact for me, I think our generation, and probably yours as well, everyone talks about how we want to work for a purpose and how we don't just want to go and work for big tobacco or whatever it is. But that's really rung true for me throughout my life. You know, my mother and father were both in not-for-profit. My father worked in disability, and I was always I was raised as a traditional lefty, caring about other people. But as time went on, I travelled the world, and I went to some of the less privileged countries around the world. And also even through Swinburne, I did a social impact project up in the Kimberley with one of the lecturers there. So being exposed to the way other people experience the world and other people experience life made me really think about someone other than myself. I think that I spent a lot of time doing that as well, certainly throughout my 20s. But as I got older, I thought, look, if I'm going to spend 80 hours a week working on something, it may as well be something that I feel really good about and that I feel I can genuinely see an impact in the world from.
So I've worked for major corporates like Goldman Sachs and Yamaha Motors, and then smaller companies. And so later in life, being able to be a bit more picky and choosy about where I wanted to go. But in the early days, I was just looking for whatever opportunities I could find, and jobs that I didn't think would be that great. I started at Goldman Sachs as a temp, and it ended up being one of the greatest jobs. I started off in a very basic role, but any company that you get into, if you prove yourself and you do well, opportunities will open up for you. People will see what you're doing. So never think everyone sees what you're doing. And there are those who just sort of go under the radar and just come in, do their job and bugger off, and that's fine. But if you do a really good job, you will be noticed. And if you're asking questions and seeking out other opportunities, you will be noticed. So whatever company I noticed I worked for, if you're that proactive person, you'll be tapped on the shoulder for other opportunities. And in terms of what drives me, my mother grew up in a small country town. She was one of 3 students to matriculate, as it was called back then, and she was only given the opportunity to do teaching or nursing. And so I was very aware, born in the 70s, of the opportunities that I had, and making sure that I made the most of my education and getting out there and really making the most of every opportunity that I could find.
Thank you. I know Sam already mentioned about some of the challenges he has faced. We would like to know about the panelists' biggest challenges they have faced, and how did they overcome it, and what was the learning from the challenge? Starting off with Elizabeth.
Biggest challenge, I think. It's so hard. I mean, every part of your life and career and job has challenges, and you learn from them and you move on. So as a new CEO coming into a company, I wasn't from the sector, probably just working out what to try and fix and what to do first, and making mistakes along the way. You're always going to make mistakes, and I think someone was saying, like, don't be afraid of that, as long as it's not, complete right stuff up in terms of doing something unethical. people are very forgiving if it's come from a good place or you're trying something and you're being proactive. It doesn't work out, that's okay. We've all made mistakes. So I think the biggest challenge as a first-time CEO was just trying to line everything up that I wanted to do. My first point was meeting every single staff member, having like a 20-minute meeting with every single staff member, and trying to build up engagement with the team, because it's not me who's going to deliver it, it's the team who's going to deliver it. And people who feel respected will go above and beyond, even if you can't pay the big bucks. I have found it amazing what people will do for you if you respect them and they respect you, and you've got a really great team dynamic.
Absolutely. I think one of the key challenges in any leadership position, not just in the executive leadership, is about your people and engaging your people and ensuring that they're aligned with the vision of what the company is trying to do, whether that's big or small or quarterly or a 10-year plan. So certainly people come with their own headaches, and certainly all my sleepless nights have come from people issues, whether that be underperforming or people who aren't happy or whatever that is. But it's my job, I think, as a leader to bring people on the journey with us of where we're going, what we're doing and why, and how they impact the day-to-day. And to Liz's point, you don't really, salary is just a hygiene factor. It's amazing the way that people will give back to a role and give back to an organisation if they feel that they are really respected and really engaged. So that's been a huge learning for me, but also a challenge to make sure that I continue that throughout our time as we grow and scale.
I think if I try and take that momentum and run with it, if I may, I think one of the biggest challenges was really getting motivated in organisations that didn't align with my purpose and with my values, and yet still staying focused and trying to find the positives in those companies. And I think all of you have enormous utility, right? You're very valuable people, and you may not feel that right now because you're at university. But finding something that you can really dive in to and something that you're going to be proud to do every single day, that will make all of those challenges just so much easier to push through. I only found that later in my career, but paycheck versus mission. I think mission wins every single day.
Yeah, I could summarize that from Liz. You're talking about communication and a lot about respect with grace as well, and with Sam it's about motivation, and all this plays an important role in an organization. You're definitely right. I've had experience where when I feel respected, I really go above and beyond. I even told my boss, I know this is urgent, I'll spend more time on this. I know it's 7 o'clock, but I'll get this done because I know this is important. For the fact that I knew I gained the respect from my boss and I respect him or her, that's where I go above and beyond, which is really true. And that's also part of my motivation, because I feel I'm part of this. If you were to fail, I am to fail as well. So we are on this together. This brings us to the next question. It was not sent to you, but I feel that this is a very important question to address. So for Sam, it's more of your opinion with regards to, it's more on gender right now. So the disclaimer is female CEO. It has always been lacking. How have you seen this situation, in your opinion, Sam? Is changing in our world today. We do see female participants here, and I'm pretty sure they would like to know how the landscape has changed, and especially for Liz and Grace, I'm pretty sure in a CEO position as a woman, it may have a different story, but I'd like to hear Sam's opinion first.
I think I'm the best qualified person here, so I might just pass the baton on to you if that's all.
Yeah, listen, I'm probably not qualified to answer this question on behalf of women everywhere. I can only speak to my own experience, and that is that it is really challenging to be a female, not just a female CEO, but the reality is it's hard to be female in a workplace, even today. So certainly my experience with investors, venture capitalist investors, particularly in Australia, aren't perhaps as with the times as we would like them to be. But I'm also in healthcare, so it's a lot more common in the healthcare industry for there to be female leadership, which I guess is a blessing. We actually struggle to get male leadership into the company, so we're kind of imbalanced in that way. I'm not sure what your experience is, but mine has been mean, pretty, standard, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you have to put up with some shit, basically. And when you walk into a room, there's stuff that you have to deal with that the blokes won't have to. And I've just learned to deal with it and move on. And it's funny, in the early days when I was an executive and I'd go to a meeting with a male team member who was in my team who reported to me, it would often happen that if people, whoever I was talking to, would be talking to my male colleague, and then it would become evident that I was the actual general manager, and then suddenly there's this awkward shuffle, and they'd start sort of addressing you. I've been in executive meetings where I've been, even as a general manager, where I've been asked to organise the Christmas party, in which I've politely declined. So there's just all kinds of, we know through gender bias, we know through the research. But just keep soldiering on, and I think it's slowly changing. Although in ASX listed companies, it's still very, very uncommon. But there's more of us coming through the ranks, and just keep proving yourself. And I think the biggest thing for me has been having bosses who have really championed me. So I've had two particular male bosses who were just fantastic, and they really believed in me and helped me along. And then I've had complete asshole bosses, and I've just left the organisation. So you just have to, I think, work hard, try and stand out. And if you're in an environment where you're not supported, I would just say find another job.
Agreed.
Because you're not going to change your boss.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's something that you have to resonate as well with the organization, and if it's not right for you, that's where you decide whether this is what you want or not.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Sam, for putting you in a spot, but
not at all. What great answers.
yeah, I mean, these are great answers. It's inspiring, and it also allows people to empower. Just like what Grace was saying, for your organization, it's hard to hire male executives. And for Sam, is there any effort in trying to get female executive on board?
There is, absolutely. Thank you, Ivan.
Okay.
There is, absolutely. So I think it's really important, if you're going to improve anything, you need to measure it, right? And those metrics just need to be front and centre. And so at the moment we're less than 40%, especially in our product and technology organisation. We're in the 30s of females that we employ at the moment in our product and technology organisation, and that's just, it's not something that we're proud of today, but we keep it front and centre because we want to optimise, and we want to restore that balance, right? So I think being aware of it, having conversations like this, not pretending that it's not an issue, and keeping it on the agenda is really critical.
Yeah, that's definitely very important. Thank you. And yeah, gender biasness is something that we don't condone to, because regardless of your gender, your ability does not tag to your gender. And of course, everyone offer different perspective, and everyone's perspective is important as well.
I would say as a woman, you can actually use it to your advantage. I've found that, yes, there's gender bias out there, but there's a lot of work and conversation around it. So being a woman certainly at the head of a startup opens up doors that perhaps aren't available to some of my male peers. And I just kind of think, okay, if that's available to me, if I can walk into a room and be special or something because I'm a female CEO, fine, I'm going to use that. And I have been able to, particularly with government initiatives, we've got a lot of government support from that. So if it's there for you, stuff it, just take it.
Yep, for sure. That is a beautiful way to look at it. A bit of a controversial question coming up. Success could be like acquiring Twitter, or it could even be just being happy. But we would like to know, what is your perspective of success? Could you define success? Would you like to start? Yeah.
Yeah. How do I define success? I think success from the organisation that I'm in, our definition of success is supporting people to stay home. So it's a mission-driven success. And the more people that we help to stay living at home for longer, and families that we support to look after a mother or father who has a disability or dementia or something like that, that's success for us. Success for me personally, though, is slightly different. And success for me is measured by the success of my team. So my role is really about empowering my team to be able to do their jobs really well and to make the impact that they wanted to make when they joined the organisation. And for them to be happy and to enjoy what they do and to feel really rewarded by what they do, that is the definition of success as a CEO, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Success is different for everybody, and you have your sort of success in your business and what that means for your business. I mean, you have to also be delivering results, because it's a pretty sad place when you're in an organisation where you're not hitting your targets and you're not meeting your financial results. It's about making sure, you've got an engaged and inspired team. And you can measure that many different ways. And then personally, it's, knowing that you've come home and fulfilled your role, and also having things outside of your job as well. So, and you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, no matter what, as a CEO or not as anything. And it's just probably trying to find that balance as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So success, I think it's different for everyone. And as I've gained more experience, I've realised that it's not so much the financial metrics. It's not hitting the number nearly as much as it is just really understanding your own values, your own motivations, and your own purpose, and trying to live and behave really in a way that is consistent with your values and with your purpose. Trying to lead with gratitude because that's how you respond as a team member, and so I would encourage people to try and understand what their values are and what their purpose is before they sort of charge ahead and reach for an arbitrary sort of measure of success. I took some time to go through that process myself just a couple of years ago, and that's been really valuable to me.
Yeah, and I think success does change from different point of your life. And actually we set that question up to actually get different answers from everyone. And we know that to a certain extent success means different things to different people. And I love how all three of you have put it in a professional setting and a personal setting, which is really important. There's no one definition that fits all, because being successful at work and being successful personally or at home is definitely different. It doesn't mean that if you can manage your groceries well, that's considered a success at home. There's other aspects to it as well, and I really love how all of you have shared with us.
Just on that, if I can build a little bit, hopefully not too much, but I think just putting time into yourself is absolutely critical. So we can all get caught up in our roles and in our responsibilities, but ensuring that you've got enough time for yourself, that you're and understanding what's important to you. So if family is important to you, if your relationship's important to you, ensuring that all of those bases are covered is imperative. And putting time into yourself, whether it be reading or walking or exercising, whatever gives you energy, then expands the pie effectively and allows you to be better at home, allows you to be better at work. And it's not until you really feel the burden of success. And when I was your age, I did not feel the burden of success. Right? I definitely the burden of stress. Right? The burden of stress. You really learn when you get older in your life, when you've got family responsibilities, what stress is. That becomes really important.
That is actually a very good answer. I mean, that's a very good sharing as well. And especially with Sam, when you mentioned about financials, I think I come from Asia, so I was brought up in a mindset whereby to be successful, you have to have a degree, you get a good job, you buy a house, you get married, and etc. That's considered success. But how true is that? I learned it my way, where at 30 years old, I thought, all right, I need to earn X amount of salary. But was I truly happy? And is that the measure of success? That's the reason why I'm here in Australia right now, because I felt like life is more important than getting X amount of money in your bank on a monthly basis. So everyone defines success differently, and it definitely is up to you on how you see success as well. And with that, I have one question which is very important. Knowing that all three of you are CEOs and you have very, very busy schedule, how do you find time, or do you find time to align yourself with your personal definition of success?
Kick off. Yeah, finding time for anything is challenging, but I think, look, I've sort of come to terms with this idea of that work-life balance is not really achievable, as it were. It's always a trade-off between what is the most important thing for me and my values and my well-being today. And so you'll never be able to fit everything in, and I've just kind of come to terms with that. So for me, it's about, okay, if I want to make sure that I'm feeling fulfilled and feeling energized in my life and in my work, I might not always be able to have date night, but I can always find time in my day to do work that energizes me and to work on strategic things rather than being stuck in the kind of day-to-day. And then, I know that once a month I can find time to go hiking or camping or whatever it is that I need to do to recharge. And knowing and being okay that, I think being okay with the fact that things will go wrong and you won't always be able to control everything, and there will be relationships that sometimes suffer, or there will be deadlines that sometimes get missed. Coming to terms with that has been, for me, how I kind of manage that.
Thanks, Grace. Yeah, that really resonates with me as well. I think I've already said a bit on this, but sorry, guys. But I think just not letting perfection be the enemy of the good is important as well. So, and it's I can't attribute that line to me, right? It's it's out there, but it really resonates with me, and I think that's true in life. It's true in work.
Well, I think during the last 2 years of lockdown, I focused more on trying to do things that I enjoy and motivate you. I have 2 children as well, so that's very hard to find time, but, I try and do things outside of work, and you don't have to answer your email at 10 o'clock at night. Guess what? It can wait. You get so addicted to your phone and so addicted to it, and I've just stopped doing that because it can wait unless if it's a real emergency, someone will call me. So I've just started learning. I played, as a kid, a bit of pool at Swinburne. So I've actually just had my first lesson from a grandmaster pool player who was the coach of the Chinese team. So he's hardcore in pool. So I'm going to be a pool shark. That's the thing that I'm learning at the moment. But I always try and learn a new thing. I played. I saw a thing in the paper for the inaugural seniors AFL team, so I joined that for a season just to do something different. It was terrifying, so I only did that for 1 season, but I'm always trying to learn new things and meet new people.
From the sound of it, exploration and coming to terms with things, these are advice that is really great. As all of us here, or most of us here, are students, or were students, or still is a student, coming to terms with certain things that you can't change is really important. And finding new things to learn keeps our mind active and engage with the society as well. Just like Senior FL, I've never heard of it. Probably I should try moving forward. That is something is inspiring as well for us. Not everything is about work. Not everything is about the organization itself. You have to care for yourself before you can care to others. That's what most people would say as well. So it's great that you do have a self-care regime in order to be able to support the greater organization.
Yeah, thank you. Ivan is as good as the panelists here. To put it in a way, I know it's a bit hard to answer this question, but what do you reckon is the best and worst part of being a CEO? You probably start with Sam. Yeah.
Okay. It's the best and worst part. Look, it's being able to lead a team and create an environment where, like, if you're successful, and that's not always the case, but if the company is successful, to play a role in creating an environment where everyone involved can be successful, everyone can benefit from those opportunities. And so the way that I sort of characterise it is if the organisation is ultimately successful, it's a rising tide of opportunity that everyone's involved. And I think that's always the case, even more so, that's the case in smaller organisations. And so as team members having proximity to people, like are here on the panel, that as the business grows, there's more problems to solve. Being a trusted advisor, a trusted contributor, that means that you're really well positioned to help solve those problems and have another opportunity. So it's to create an environment and play a role in the opportunities and the careers of everyone that you get to work with. I think that's the best side of it. And the other side of it is it never stops. It literally just never stops. But that's great as well. Like we get to live with purpose. We've got a mission, and enjoy the journey.
Best and worst part, I think, yeah, definitely the best part for me, I think, is being able to, I guess the best part is to be able to engage the team and around something that is, for me, because it was my company and I founded it, it was something that just came out of my head one day. And it was, some idea that I had once, and now it's this whole living, breathing thing that, as we speak, is, existing somewhere else with all these smart people that get to work at it, and I get to see it turn into a national company, which is freaking amazing, frankly. But I think the worst part, it's really when you are the leader or when you are at the highest level of your organisation, no one will really understand the pressure that you're under, and you don't really have that opportunity to turn to a peer and say, well, this person's really pissing me off today. Like, you can't do that. So every decision you make, you're accountable for. Everything you do, your team will watch very, very closely. And that's great. It means you can be a really inspiring leader, but it also means that every human part of you that you perhaps wouldn't want people to pay attention to definitely comes out as well.
Yeah. I think the best part, and throughout your lives and careers and different jobs, you'll have different managers, different bosses, different peers that you work with, and you take the best and worst. And I think the true joy, and I always say it's a privilege to be the CEO. It's a privilege to lead an organisation, because you can set such a positive example. You can take all the best that you've learned and who you are as a person, and you can really change the course of the company and what you do and the end product or whatever it is that you're delivering, but also of those people around you who are working for you. Like, you have incredible power. And it is a complete and utter privilege to be in that position and to set a really strong culture and really have a long-term impact. And again, on the business side, but also for the team who are working for you. But the worst thing, to echo what Grace has said, just the constant weight of responsibility on your shoulders that never goes away, the gazillion decisions that you've got to make, and that when you front up to the boardroom, you are responsible. So and it's with you 24/7. So that's probably the hardest thing to try and deal with and manage.
I really like the part about influencing, being a person that would be able to influence the entire organization with what is best, or what you have learned of the best practices to be passed on to everyone else. I think that's really a great thing about a CEO, that you are able to disseminate this information and to make other people better as well. And of course, clearly the never-ending work or the responsibility that lies on your shoulder may be the worst thing, but that does, I believe, come with satisfaction as well once things are achieved. I'm aware of time, and I'd like to open this up to the floor. If they have any questions, we have about 10 to 15 minutes if the floor has any questions for our CEO.
This is a question for Grace.
I think you need to speak up a bit.
Okay, so this is a question for Grace, and the question really relies around like the infancy of the company, because I'm also starting a company, and the biggest problem I'm seeing is like I'm doing software, and for software you need good hardware, you need a good computer, and that's going to cost me a few $1,000s. I need to get money. I need to talk to VCs, but I keep getting rejected. I apply for opportunities, and I keep getting rejected. How do you approach a VC to really guarantee success? And do you know of any government opportunities that are out there for people like me who are in those foundational steps to be like, hey, I've got a great idea, and I've talked to VCs, they say it's a great idea, and then I go for opportunities and I don't get the money. I'm like, what's the discrepancy? What am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk all day about this and my personal opinions on VCs, but I think when I was starting out, some of the best advice I got was, what is your message? Like, if you can't...
So I didn't hear that.
Sorry, some of the best advice I got early on was to think about what is your message to anybody who's interested in your company, whether that be a potential employee, an investor, an accelerator program, etc. And it's, what's the problem you're solving, how are you solving it, and why are you better than everybody else? And if you can knock that out in 30 seconds, then that's your first hurdle. But I would say that VCs are their own beasts, particularly in Australia.
Yeah.
So in the early stages, I would be looking at accelerator programs. I think Swinburne also has an innovation hub or something that could be useful. So potentially we can catch up afterwards and have a chat about some of my network that might be able to support you.
Yes, because it's I try.
Yeah.
And I even talked to Dom Pim, and so Dom Pim was the founder of Upbank, and if you don't know, Upbank was sold last year for like 130 million.
Yep.
I was like, Dom, help me. What do I do? And he
Yeah.
kind of gave me some pointers. He's like, this is what VCs are looking for, and I don't I like. And another fear I have is, and I want to ask you, how do you go about this? Because the product I'm building has never been seen before. No, like only VCs know about it. Like
Yep.
consumers don't really know about it. Like I have a private group in Facebook, they know about it, but it's also that kind of I'm trying to manage that kind of level of like, if you're in software and you build something, if you put a prototype, that's going to get copied immediately. So that's the biggest threat I have. It's like, if I put a prototype out there,
Yep.
it's going to get taken. So I'm happy to talk about it with VCs because it's like, I know they'll keep it private, but that's another
Yeah,
thing.
I would forget that because I can tell you now, only so many people can have ideas, right? No one has the guts and the time and the determination to make it happen except for you. So I would not worry about secrecy at all. I would get that out there as quickly as you possibly can to people who are going to be buying this product. Prove that you have somebody out there who's going to pay you for this, and that's when the VCs will pay attention. I wouldn't be worried about somebody copying it because the amount of work, sweat, blood and tears that goes into doing something like this is not everybody is cut out for that.
Okay.
We can catch up afterwards and have a chat if you
Yeah,
like.
sure.
Any other questions?
Cheers, mate. Sorry, just an open question. Why CEO and not COO? Why do you want to be the executive rather than work for someone else? Is there a particular reason or drive?
Maths? No maths in the CEO.
Sorry?
No maths involved in CEO.
It's to be honest, like general manager, CEO, it's not really about the title. It's just about being a leader and being in a position where like you're enabled. And I love Liz's characterization. It's a privilege to be able to make decisions and to be able to lead. And so I would not get hung up on a title. It's the title is really just part of the journey. My next role may not be a CEO role. It might be a different type of company. It might be a director role. Might be founder. It's not about a specific designation as much as it is the opportunity to lead and be part of something that you're passionate about.
I guess the only thing I would add to that, I mean, as the Chief Operating Officer, it's a good segue if you want to be a CEO into the CEO role. And as the CEO, you oversee all of the operations anyway. But as the Chief Operations Officer, it is, depending on the company, it's a great role to be in, and it's a great segue into the CEO. But the CEO role, you have broader remit over every part of the operation, the entity, not just the operational side.
Yeah, the CEO role is much more visionary, whereas I think the CEO, the chief operating, is really about the details. I don't know about you guys, I'm not particularly good with details, that's never been my forte, but certainly it takes a really detailed orientated person in that COO role. My TIC she is just very much in the spreadsheets every day, and then someone who's more visionary, and we work really well together. Whereas if it were the other way around, I'm not sure it would work so well.
From the start of it is the level of detail that you go into, because from a CEO's perspective it's like bird's eye view, and from a COO perspective it's anything related to operations, and with operation it may have to come with a very specific area that you look into. So
It varies really significantly. It's all about age and stage of the organisation as well. So CEO on day one, you're literally writing your purpose statement and your solution, and you're doing your wireframes yourself, right? That doesn't happen when you're employing 40 or 50 people. But the journey on the way there and having experience like going from that granular level of detail right up to the strategy level is actually what makes you good at your job, like when you are making the decisions.
from what Sam has just mentioned, I think we are all CEOs in our own life because we're actually managing our operations, we're managing on everything that we're doing. So yeah, just like what you mentioned, day one CEO is about ideation, writing your business model canvas until you have like 50 employees or 3,000 translators. Then that changes the role as well to what level you're looking at as a CEO. Any other questions?
Are you all 9 to 5ers or 5 to 9ers? And how many days a week?
Look at it's you're on whenever you need to be on, and so just and it's probably unique to everyone. But I try to block out some time for family. I try and block out some time for myself, and then the rest of it is game on, right? And especially when you're working with a global company. So my mornings are usually jam-packed because we've got people in the US, and so there'll be a couple of very early mornings a week where I'm required for sort of client meetings or prospect meetings or what have you. And so it's just about finding time where you can to do what you need to do outside of work.
I have one more question. This is to everybody. I don't want an answer now, but to think about it. You have 5 seconds to answer in your mind. And if you can't do it, it means you haven't thought about it well enough. But you should know the answer. What is the second most important thing in your life? Are you all able to answer it within 5 seconds? In your mind? If you weren't able to, it probably means that you don't know what the first most important thing in your life is. And if you don't know that, are you living or not? Are you alive? You know, you're human beings. You should know what is important to you. And you recognise work-life balance. That's important. You probably got burnt along the way. That's why it became important, maybe, through experience. But that's something that I ask a lot of my senior students, and it's surprising how many of them can't answer within 5 seconds. They don't know what the second most important thing in their life is because they haven't established what the first most important thing in their life is. So you've got to look at your life goals, your life persona. I think it's important because that's what raises us human beings above animals. Animals look for food, look for shelter. It's instinctive. But us, we've got our own minds and our own decisions to make. Someone said you're the CEO of your own life. Well, if you are, where are you heading? What are you doing? What you're about? Anyway, it's just a philosophical
I would say
comment.
that is a really important point to ponder as well. Great point. What's the second most important thing in your life? And yeah, just give it a thought. Before you go to bed tonight, think about it. I think as we progress like in entrepreneurship spirit, we do revisit our business model canvas every now and then. We do revisit our business model every now and then as well. So think about it. What matters? What's the second most important things in your life tonight, and will it change tomorrow or day after? It's a point to ponder. And let's take this as a segue to move on to our next segment where let's network with our CEO. And thank you very much for your time to be here today. Let's have a conversation personally with Sam, Grace, and also Liz to find out more things that would be beneficial to you, more related to you. And let's hope they are able to answer some of your questions and lead you to the right direction to be successful CEO as who they are here right now. Thank you very much for your time today, and
Thanks for having us.
let's mingle.